welcome back. I'm Karyn. I'm here with Kelly. We're answering all of your grief questions. This one, Kelly and I talked about a little bit ahead of time. I think it's one that we both find particularly interesting just because there's not a lot of forums for this type of question, this type of loss. So specifically the question is, I didn't get along with them. Can I still grieve?
Absolutely. The reality is I talked a lot. I was actually did a training this week. I was training therapists on grief, and this came up a lot. And it's a conversation of maybe you're estranged from them, right? And there really isn't a lot of great groups out there for this kind of thing. I've been getting more and more calls recently actually about this. Like, do you offer a group on this? And I was like, no, I really just stay within the lines of bereavement, right? But then say you have been estranged and then you find out that they died. Then what happens? Like, oh, well, how am I supposed to feel? Do I go to the services? Do I not go to the services? I feel mixed. Maybe I feel a bit of relief, which might be normal, right? And maybe you feel sad because you grieve for the fact that you weren't able to reconnect, or that you grieve for what could have been in the future, right? You didn't get that closure maybe that you needed with them. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to still grieve, right? Your grief may look different. Yeah. And everybody's grief looks different, right? Your grief is so unique. But I'll share a story from, now at this point, I'm dating myself. It's probably about 18 years ago. And I did a grief group at where I was working, and a woman was in it. And she was sexually abused by her father as a child. So she had a lot of conflicted feelings about him. And we were standing outside doing a balloon release, which don't give me too much because I did balloons. I don't do them anymore. I know. But she didn't want to let her balloon go. Here's a man who hurt her, who traumatized her. But she felt by letting that balloon go, she was letting go of him. And so we had a process that we had to, go through that process and say, you're not letting go of him. You're letting go of really what no longer serves you with your grief as well. And maybe whatever it is that you think's not helping you. And we were out there over an hour before she could let that balloon go. So I think it's a great reminder for all of us that even somebody that were traumatized by this person, right? This person that was supposed to keep her safe and that she was supposed to love her, she was still grieving for him.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, with this type of loss, this can be one of the hardest to get support for in your circle. Because maybe there has been estrangement, or maybe it's just been somebody, a family member or somebody who's been very difficult to get along with, or a marriage that your closest friends knew was often strained. And, so I feel like at times like that, because we are maybe confiding in our friends or in the people closest to us, that we're struggling. It's been hard. The person I'm working with, a woman right now, and lost a husband who was an alcoholic. And a lot of it is like, he wasn't good for you anyway. You're better off. And it's just a lot of that, like, total disenfranchised grief. Absolutely. Where, it's just kind of taking the grief away from the person and sort of saying, you shouldn't feel that way because you had a terrible relationship with them, or from their opinion, they were a terrible person, or whatever it may be. And it's so not true.
It complicates your grief, right? Yes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Maybe he wasn't the greatest, but first of all, don't say that.
I know.
You can maybe think it, but don't say it to them. And maybe they'll get to that place where there is relief, but in early grief, it's going to be a mixed bag, just like it is for anyone. But then when there maybe wasn't the best relief, it's complicated. It's just it's layers. I think grief is so many layers.
Oh, it puts a lot of work on the grieving person, because what I'll always say is that the sadness is the easy part. That's the sweet part. That's the part where I love the person. I miss the person. They were wonderful. And that sounds ridiculous to call that easy, because that's so hard. But we're doing that while at the same time maybe being very angry with a person, feeling like something is completely unresolved, feeling like I didn't get to say something, I didn't get to hear something. Maybe we assumed there was going to be more time, and the finality of the loss means however that relationship ended, that we feel like that's how it has to end. And that is some of what I talk to people about. I mean, sometimes it's like reconciling the relationship but having to do it all very one-sided. You don't have the benefit of having the person here. Doesn't mean you can't still work through some things in terms of like forgiveness, if that's what feels appropriate, or to officially distance yourself from that person. I've had people who have almost mentally divorced a spouse after they have passed because they decided that the things that they found out afterwards were things that they couldn't live with. And so they were trying to deal with, I mean, it's just so
Yeah, I mean,
complicated.
that's a whole other one
So
I was
much.
thinking about as well as you were
Yeah,
saying that. I was like, oh, that is such another topic
it is. It is.
that's happening more and more, I think, unfortunately now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Probably have to imagine with like the footprints that people have with texts and
Exactly.
emails and things
Yeah,
like that. There's a
exactly.
lot of things that can be found out. So yeah, maybe we'll do that as another
Yeah,
video.
we'll talk about that in another one.
But yeah, so I mean, it is the big part of like just you're having so many feelings and you're having them all at the same time, and we really struggle with that.
Mhm,
So what would you say to someone who's feeling that way? Like, yes, I can still grieve.
mhm.
What can a person do to help themselves through these very conflicting feelings?
I think acknowledge them, right? Be aware of them. Maybe talk about those. Actually, I do an activity, and it's called relationship trees. I didn't develop it, but what I have them do is I have them make the tree, and different. There's leaves, 3 different leaves colors. One is for the good memories and the good aspects of the loved one. Yellow is for maybe more of the neutral events and neutral aspect or personality aspects, and then the other leaf is the things that
Hmm.
maybe weren't so positive, maybe the not so good memories, right? Because the reality is nobody is perfect. So whoever dies, we're going to have a bit of different, we're going to have different leaves for anyone who dies. That's the
Sure.
reality. And so being able to do that and then taught and processing through that, like if you could have changed one leaf, which one would it have been? And so I do this one a lot with people who've had loved ones die from an overdose or something like that, where maybe there was years of challenges, so it's hard to remember the good memories, but it actually can help them start to shift to see some more of the good memories too. So I think just being aware, the fact that no one is perfect, everybody has different qualities, and you can still grieve for them. You can grieve for what you didn't get to have. So just being mindful of that, practicing self-compassion, always going back to that. I really do believe it's about thinking about what would you say to a best friend and give yourself that same advice. Just being kind to yourself, practicing that self-kindness, and practicing self-care, and just acknowledging that this is really hard and difficult. And there may be days where like, oh, I feel great. I feel relief. That's okay as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way to
Yeah.
feel.
It's such a hard one, and the good memories complicate it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a weird part of it too, because a
Mm-hmm.
person can just find themselves swinging, to each side of the pendulum with like very extreme feelings on both sides.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, maybe we need to do a part 2 on this.
Yeah, I agree. I have like 3 other ideas that I
I
feel
know, I
like.
know. All right. Well, for now, Kelly, thank you very much. And thank you to everybody. As we always say, if you have your own questions, anything that you'd like us to answer, please don't hesitate. You can leave them in the comments or reach out to us through our email, which is also listed underneath our videos. So thank you, Kelly, and thank you, everybody.